I want to start with you, Mike, talking about you specifically, because of course now this is your third year here, if you can believe it. It's gone pretty quickly. It has, hasn't it? I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about you as far as your background is concerned as a maker, and where you started your training, and your early influences as well, and specifically with your training, why did you choose that particular starting point, I guess, for your professional career?
Well, I started quite late compared with a lot of people in terms of catching the theatre bug. I started acting when I was about 15 or 16 in school productions, and then in a local sort of small Birmingham fringe company, pub above a pub, and caught the bug particularly in terms of the community it brings you into. I think that was the first thing, that I suddenly was meeting all these different people and becoming all these different people. I don't know, just sort of opened my horizons in lots of...
Were you a theatre goer?
I was actually, yeah. I went to Birmingham Rep all the time, and my mum sort of encouraged me to see everything with her, because she was a theatre lover as well. So I started 15 or 16 acting in everything I could kind of, get cast in. And similarly at university, I was just sort of, my degree was kind of in the shadows, and my my acting exploits were in the foreground, and I just did everything I could get experience of. So when I left university, I was thinking, I'd done a bit of directing as well by then at university. I loved it. So I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work in theatre, and I actually worked for a year at Sadler's Wells Theatre in London, and in the press department as a kind of marketing and press assistant, and discovered the wonderful world, kind of mind-blowing world of physical, visual work and contemporary dance, and kind of was really invigorated by some of the sort of particularly the dance theatre work I was seeing, that was both telling stories and showing me these wild images and possibilities I hadn't realised were there for the stage. So at that point, I thought I wanted to go and learn more about kind of visual and physical approaches. So I went and trained as an actor at Lecoq in Paris, which is a theatre school rather than an acting school. So there were directors and writers and actors and designers. We were all training through performance, getting up on stage and improvising and making work every week. But we were always thinking about the whole picture, the holistic whole of what we were making. And what I loved about that training was it gave me a better understanding of the body, and how there's a physical and visual imagination beyond the sort of mental and verbal imagination. But also it put me in contact with, it put me in an environment with people from all over the world. So I don't know, that thing about crossing borders of difference between people and communication beyond words, discovering those kind of shared truths, those universal comic sensibilities that aren't actually about your own language and your own culture, even if you thought they were. Just all of those discoveries of sameness and connection.
What kind of doors, as far as influences are concerned, what kind of doors did, particularly working with Lecoq, what kind of doors did they open for you, as far as the people that you were watching, listening to, reading about? Who were your...
I was really inspired by Théâtre du Soleil while I was in Paris, so I went to see their productions, by the work of Ariane Mnouchkine, who, an ex-Lecoq student, was bringing together actors from across the world to make really rigorous ensemble work. And it was those brilliant ensemble pieces, and then I had seen work by British companies like Complicité, but also Propeller, a very British company, who were working in that kind of ensemble aesthetic and spirit, Improbable as well, and it was those companies that were real companies and had sort of brought actors into an infectious, shared, imaginative world that really caught my imagination.
And how did you, with Lecoq, because obviously with the training at Lecoq, it's not always the easiest and the most, the warmest environment, because it can be quite critical, it can be quite confronting. How did you combat, or what sort of hoops did you jump through in order to alleviate yourself or get around that more potentially aggressive nature?
I think it was challenging, of course, for everyone there, that the teachers would say things like, no, there is nothing here in what you've just shown me, nothing, stop, finished, this is finished, you know, and you'd be 20 seconds into a kind of 5-minute piece you'd been creating all week, and they would just stop you. There is no space, there is no imagination, there is no body, there is no story, there is nothing. Leave the stage. But actually, the more that happens, the more you start to see it's not personal, and it's about craft, and you learn that you need a strong start, and then a really strong next bit. If you want to keep them watching and keep an audience engaged, then you have to catch people and take them with you, enfold them from the beginning, and not miss a trick. You cannot afford to sort of gear up.
And how do you interpret that now as a director? What's your approach? And obviously, you know, the work that you did in Lecoq, the moments that you keep remembering, those moments of being really sharp and really on the money as far as the choices that you make. How does that translate now into your work as director?
Yeah, I think there has to be I like to strive for a balance of really kind of crafted, well-composed kind of stage work where we've really thought about rhythm and image, but also that it's really wildly alive and open, and that the audience feels like they're in the middle of something that's happening and has a kind of possibility of uniqueness to tonight in it, and therefore there has to be a bit of risk as well, a little bit of looseness, a little bit of, and in our theatre space, and I feel so privileged to work here because I love this theatre so much, this theatre space. There's a radical intimacy here that you have to exploit. You have to.
It's impossible to ignore.
It's impossible to ignore. It would be mad to do so. So you have to reach out to your audience and say, this is the world, you're part of it, and we don't know what's going to happen. Come along for the ride. Buckle up. Buckle up. And at the same time, let them know that you've worked really hard on something that's rigorous and well thought through, and careful and caring of their journey.
What makes you sit up and take notice as an audience member? If you're able at that moment as an audience member to take your director hat off and just be a punter, what is it that makes you sit up and take notice? What grabs you? It's surprises grab me, and I suppose what I mean by that is not necessarily tricks, but freshness. So, you know, come into a classic play like Midsummer Night's Dream and feel it really freshly presenting a group of humans who are, you know, battling out a set of dynamics that are true to you and resonant, and that speak to you of your own life. So I hope we'll achieve that with this production, that although it's going to be very familiar to some people, it will hopefully excite them in terms of feeling that it's present and it's pertinent. Well, with that in mind, why Midsummer Night's Dream? It's not one of the canon's most obscure titles. Why Midsummer Night's Dream, and also why now?
Why Midsummer Night's Dream? I think that it's a riotously entertaining play, and there is so much to be said for giving people a joyous, wild, raucous night out. So I think we can achieve that with this play. It's fast-paced, delightful and daring and bold, and, you know, and volatile and dramatic. So it's exciting. It's an exhilarating play. It's also clear and open, and I think can be related to by a lot of people. So it's a good first play, a really good first experience of Shakespeare for younger audiences, or for audiences of any age who haven't really come to Shakespeare before. And I think we're going to work really hard to be super faithful to Shakespeare's intentions and the dynamics within the play, but also work as hard as possible to open it out. Why now? It's a very political play in the most sort of accessible way. You know, it presents a society that's all got a kind of very I'll start again with that. In terms of why now, it's a play that is, I think, really sort of politically relevant because it initially gives us a society that is supposedly civilized, supposedly ordered, supposedly, you know, kind of offers a sort of a set of hierarchies and rules that we can all abide by. But actually, you know, underneath that veneer, there's a lot that's problematic about all of that. There are leaders who are pursuing their own kind of agendas and greed, and
that's all bubbling underneath the surface.
Bubbling under the surface, and it's a socially repressive society, and so we're looking at the Athens of Midsummer Night's Dream and thinking, well, what if this was Britain in a few years' time? And it could be. It could so easily be the way that our society's headed, a more socially repressive society that makes judgment about who people want to love and how they want to do that. And it speaks to everyone, I think. There's always a moment in everyone's life where you want to break free from the rules. Whether they're good rules or bad rules, you want to go to a place of wildness, of fantasy, of abandonment, of the status quo and the structures of your life, and pursue dream or the impossible. And sometimes that place can be a dangerous place. That fantasy realm, that place of abandonment outside of the rules. It can be dangerous, but it can also be a place of great truth and discovery, and bring you to a more certain place in your life. So whether you're interested in politics and society, or whether you're interested in the kind of psychological journey of this play, where we travel to that place of fantasy and abandonment and come back more complete, I think there's so much that speaks to anyone.
Yeah, there's also a really interesting comment on gender as well, because if you think about it, at the beginning, there's one character has won another one in order to become married, and then there's another character who is saying, look, if you don't follow my rules, there are only two possibilities. It's to live the life of a nun or to die. So there are really interesting comments on gender as well. How much of that is informing your version of Midsummer Night's Dream?
Yes, there is this very central, important plot element in the play, which is that Aegeus, the father of Hermia, does not want Hermia to be betrothed to Lysander, to be with Lysander, and instead wants her to be with Demetrius, who in turn is pursuing Hermia. But there is no love between Hermia and Demetrius, no true love. And actually, I think the love between Hermia and Lysander is a true love, and a kind of dynamic, and it's a romance with integrity to it, unlike many of the bad romances of the play. So for us to make that kind of feel clear to a contemporary audience, this situation where the father is being so prescriptive, we've changed the gender of Lysander. So Hermia and Lysander are a lesbian couple, and so Hermia's father, Aegeus, is that very socially conservative, socially repressive, traditional man in a socially repressive society who will not allow this gay love to kind of blossom and exist, and has gone to his political leader and said, please, enact
Help me out here.
repressive state. And of course, we know that around the world right now there are states where you could be put to death for that choice, for that, not that it's a choice, for that essence of your personality, of you, for your sexual identity. And so, I don't know, in making that change, and it is a I suppose some might say that it's a bold change. I actually think it's helping us get at the intended dynamic that Shakespeare was putting across and telling the story more truthfully than if we were to just try and establish a different kind of social hierarchy between these two men. So in changing gender, there we're trying to portray the essence of the play more closely.
In the same ballpark, I guess, as far as the essence of the play is concerned, there are some really universal themes that run throughout the play. What are your audiences going to get that they haven't necessarily seen before in another version of Midsummer Night's Dream, considering that there are some pretty universal themes running throughout the play?
I think that the quest to question and dissolve the harmful pretenses and restrictions that we place on ourselves and on other people. I think that there's such an integrity to some of the characters in the play, to Hippolyta, who has been essentially kidnapped for this very flawed marriage with Theseus, and who, for me, is a quite central character who has a driving influence in the end, and great has the perspective of the outsider, and delivers great wisdom as a result.
And says comparatively little compared to other characters within the play as well.
She does, but what she says is so strong. I feel like the mechanicals have great integrity to them, and might feel more human maybe than in some productions, more identifiable, and might feel more like they represent the audience, and the audience are with them and backing them all the way. You know, they, I think, are the everyman, the normal person on the street who, in a difficult world, economic and societal world, where they don't have much hope, they're gifted tradespeople, all of them, but they don't have much hope of moving their lives forward in this economically unequal place. So, they're given this chance of a lifetime, this once in a lifetime opportunity to perform at, the wedding of the century. And it's that kind of X Factor, Britain's Got Talent, moment of possible fame and prosperity and social transformation that this could give them. If this goes well, everything is transformed in their lives, and that creates enormous stakes for them, and of course is going to leave them beset with anxiety and arguing about how much to scare the audience with a lion, and all of the kind of humour and sort of ridiculousness and comedy of their plight comes, I think, out of that really important quest and the high stakes and the sort of integrity of their
and the joy for us as an audience is that we also get to see the result of their work as well, with Pyramus and Thisbe at the end. We get to enjoy very much enjoy not only the journey but also the product.
I think that's right. And I think what they end up producing might not be perfect, and it might be flawed, and it might be mistaken in places, and we will have great fun with that. But it has also at its heart a great level of endeavour to it. A huge endeavour. And that's very special, and it's a one-off moment in their lives. And I think they show up in that kind of the integrity of that endeavour. They show up the flaws in the sort of more civilised, more perfect world of the elite around them. So there's a great deal of substance and humanity to characters that I suppose in perhaps maybe in some productions are kind of treated as fantastical or comedic to slightly too great an extent. There is huge raw humanity in the fairies, and there is great depth in the mechanicals.
What's something that you know about Midsummer Night's Dream that no one else knows? If anything. I mean, that might be too wild a question for you, but something that you've had in the back of your mind about Midsummer Night's Dream that you think, this is my version, this is the version that we're going to build, something that hopefully will...
Gosh. Great question. I don't know if I'm going to do it any justice.
I don't know.
I'm struggling to answer.
No, of course you will. But something that you want your audience to walk out with, going, that's why I've seen this version. That's why I've seen the Tobacco Factory Theatre's version. Something that they're walking away with, that something that they're now thinking about that they didn't necessarily think about before. Something that they've seen that they didn't expect, something that made them sit up and take notice.
I suppose, yeah, I think my abstract answer to that question is the audience will feel included in the huge effort of imagination around this production. I think that there's going to be a humility to it, which is around the fact that actors will be playing all kinds of parts, and the play is about how we all have access constantly, if we want it, to the world of fantasy and imagination, the world of dream. And we can go there if we want to, and it can be frightening to go there, but it can be good for us and restorative. And we're going to take the audience right into the heart of that plight, of us going there, of us trying as a, humble set of 9 humans on stage, conjuring what is one of the most, magical, imaginative, and ambitious plays ever written. So I hope that people will come away feeling exhilarated by having played more of an active role in that and feeling that they can keep going there.
Tell me a little bit about your process in rehearsals. So obviously take for example, and also the differences that you have as a director going into something like Midsummer Night's Dream, and how that differs from the way you approached a production like View from a Bridge, which obviously made many best of 2018 lists, mine included, as far as last year was concerned. How do you go into a text like Midsummer Night's Dream? How is it similar to the way you approach rehearsals, and how does it differ?
In many ways, it will. I think our first week will feel similar. It will feel the same. We will be playing lots of games. Yeah. Playing games is really key to me. The development of the energy and the spirit and the connection between actors, and the sense that it's a safe space to take a leap, is the same. But there is a greater openness here, because we can just adjust slightly and play with and tweak this text in a way that serves it. Whereas with A View from the Bridge, we had to kind of entirely honour its exact form, and also there was a lot to delve into the depths of with A View from the Bridge. We had to go right underneath the text and sort of do some quite analytical kind of character objective work. And I think there's a place for that with Shakespeare, but actually in this play I think we're looking for the situation and the game and the dynamics and the playful framework for each scene. And that's a slightly different process, which feels very exhilarating. There is an element to which you have to make some decisions, though, more with Shakespeare before you go into rehearsal. You have to decide, well, where is this set? and I think it's not really possible to produce anything in a timeless way, you have to at least give the actors a grounding in where they are and make some clear decisions prior to rehearsal that then can be fleshed out. And A View from the Bridge, that was decided for us.
Pretty much.
So, yeah, I don't know. It feels really different, and yet I hope that the spirit of the approach will feel the same.
And with the spirit of the approach in rehearsals, how do you combat people's trauma with Shakespeare? Obviously, there are people have certain hesitations about Shakespeare, whether it be the language, the setting, whether people conceptually change it too much, whether they stay too faithful. Obviously, there are certain hesitations audiences have. How do you combat that in rehearsals with your actors in order to make sure that you've got something here in this space that is as accessible and as welcoming as possible?
I think that that's the biggest challenge with Shakespeare, because you all become experts of the play over the course of a rehearsal period. You all understand every image or reference and turn of phrase, and an audience who experiences that turn of phrase just once, fleetingly, has a totally different relationship to that material than the one you end up with. And of course you have to have a deeper understanding when you're delivering it, but you have to keep challenging yourself to return to the perspective of the fresh ears of an audience. And I think you can solve a lot through just clarity of relationship on stage, clarity of intention. But I do think as well there is scope for, little cuts and edits, little tweaks to certain words. One example I think of is, when I'm wondering about this, is that Shakespeare uses the word "an" to mean "if." And I think that throws audiences sometimes. And I feel that there's an argument for just switching it, just stick an "if" in, because then you just keep people with you, flowing through the meaning of what you're performing. So there's that process. One tool that we will deploy is fresh people coming into the room every week. So, we're going to have a fairly open rehearsal room. So other members of the team here and our young producers and other people affiliated with the organisation will be invited in on a regular basis to just to honestly let us know, is this feeling clear? Is this meaning something for you? Is this reaching out to you? It's a collective endeavour to put a play on always. There is no single person who is achieving a production, and I facilitate that collective endeavour, but especially when it's me directing here and I'm part of the team, there is a real opportunity, and it was the same with A View from the Bridge, for a more inclusive approach to ensuring that we give audiences a powerful experience.
Well, you're spinning a lot of plates, because not only have you got the people who are Shakespeare hungry, that they love Shakespeare, they lap it up, you have your regular audiences, but you also have your audiences that are, like I say, they are hesitant. You've got the 14-year-old who's in the audience whose only relationship with Shakespeare may be in an English class and who just has a complete block over the language. And by the same token, you have the well-worn Shakespeare audience member who has seen a lot of versions of the play that they're just about to sit through and see, as well as the people who are completely receptive and who may never have seen a production of Midsummer Night's Dream before. So you're spinning a lot of plates. How do you keep all of those people? I guess I always refer to it as the Toy Story 3 routine, that you manage somehow to completely engage every demographic, every age group, all at the same time with the same story. It may not be a secret, but what's your secret for a production like that?
It's clarity, it's visual clarity, physical clarity, psychological clarity, and textual clarity. And I think for that 14-year-old who's maybe a little bored of the classroom version of Midsummer Night's Dream or Shakespeare, they will see a really bold, clear, exciting, identifiable set design and costume design, and the lighting design will feel really punchy and exciting and surprising as well. And so there'll be things that they recognise in that. There'll be signposting and creation of world that will mean that the text sort of comes to life in a new fashion. But at the same time, we have to really deliver on that textual nuance and imagery, and for the stalwart of the deeply cultured Shakespeare lover, we mustn't abandon the pursuit of kind of power and beauty and depth in all of that too. And there is just hard graft to do on that. So we will inevitably not please everyone at every moment. But you create, I hope, a debate in people. As long as you give people enough that they love, then they can compare that with the moments they didn't love, and then you've got a conversation, and then you've got an engagement with one of the greatest pieces of writing that we hold in our canon. And opinion is what you want, and you don't want it to be flatline positive.
What comes first for you? The play or the concept? How does it work as far as choosing? So you've chosen Midsummer Night's Dream. Was it because you have a passion for the play, or was it because you have this great idea that you think would serve the play incredibly well?
It's 100% the play. It's 100% the play. And I've seen two brilliant productions a long time ago of Midsummer Night's Dream that showed me its potential to be wildly alive, which is a phrase I like to use, I overuse. And one of them was a Shakespeare Schools Festival production by a special school in Birmingham that was possibly one of the most moving and sort of radically kind of thoughtful and powerful pieces I've ever experienced. And another was a production by Propeller that was comedically just really clever and really fun. And raucous, and I don't know. So I hold those two memories dear. It's such a rich play. So what I wanted to do first was go and mine the play and get to know it better. And then out of just wading through it came a sense of the concept, which has just gradually cohered over time and still needs to be further cohered with the actors. There's a kind of final 20% to get us over the line, which needs to happen in the rehearsal process, and that will, I think, make it more feel like more of an ensemble piece anyway.
There's a lovely quote from Orson Welles, who said that people go to see Shakespeare to hear the soliloquies or to hear the famous lines. How do you, for those people that do come in, for the Orson Welles types that go in to hear "If we shadows have offended" and all the other famous lines, "Ill met by moonlight, proud Titania," how do you serve those people that just want to come and hear those famous moments, the best of hits?
I think the best way you can serve the best of moments is to treat them like new writing. Come at them fresh, imagine it's a new draft of a new play, and therefore do all of the work in understanding those words with no baggage attached to you. So if we shadows have offended, my instinct at the moment for that speech, just trying to come at it fresh, is that it's a very disempowered speech. It's a very interesting, weak place for a character who's been a magician throughout to end. And that's that's trying to let go of memories and just thinking, what is happening here? Gosh, Puck has been left alone. There is no relationship with Oberon now that things are restored with Titania, and suddenly she is at the beck and call of the audience. There's a reversal of status. So I'm just trying to kind of see it.
It is a bold moment, isn't it? Because Puck has just run wild throughout the entire play, and then suddenly at the end go, "Look, sorry, if this has put any of you off, I'm really sorry." And it is a moment of real honesty.
It feels like that, doesn't it? And I think to just accept the words as being an apology and an honest kind of attempt to undo damage, then we've probably got some really nice kind of bit of character work and in terms of the relationship with the audience, some work to do that would be the same as if it were new writing. So just try, but we may end up in an entirely different place, of course.
You've got some time.
We've got some time. We have got time. But I think coming at the highlights, the sort of headline soliloquies, coming at them as freshly as possible, does do them justice.
And what do you look for in an actor? When you're thinking about the play that you want to approach, you're thinking about the version of the story that you want to tell. What do you look for when you're looking for your actors?
Versatility, adaptability, listening, I think, are the main qualities that I love. Huge curiosity, a drive to explore and uncover, and a glint in the eye, a kind of... I remember saying to an actor in a past production that what I loved about him was that I would always give him a note, and then he would do something with it that wasn't what I imagined, but was better and wilder, and took me somewhere new. And that's what you want. You want that kind of chain of reaction. I certainly don't direct in order to enact the thing I've imagined in my head on stage. I send an impulse that then, creates an impulse that then creates an eventual thing that hopefully keeps changing and breathing and alive. So those actors that are up for that, I think, for the kind of constant.
I mean, it's a gift for you, but it's also a gift for them to be able to have that rapport in the room, to be able to be given that freedom, but also to be able to be given that clear steering in the first place. It's a gift both ways, I guess.
I think it is. It's a beautiful thing to be on stage as an actor. There's nothing like it, I think.
Do you miss it?
I do miss it. I do miss it sometimes. But I just love working with actors too, and seeing that constant evolution and imagination that's travelling, that's taking an audience somewhere just a tiny bit different every single night, which is why audiences should come and see this 3 times, because they will have a different ride every single time, I think. Yeah.
Have you ever considered going back to the stage? Have you ever considered, particularly the position that you're in, would you ever put yourself in a position where you are, as an actor, in the hands of someone else? Or even wear both hats?
I haven't really thought about that in terms of within this role. I've not imagined it, because there's a lot of different parts to my role as artistic director. So, actors are working so hard that a director can just swan away after the previews, can just sort of disappear and come back every so often, whereas actors are just delivering that work, that production all the time. So it would be quite hard to be doing anything else beyond the enormous endeavour of performing that actors do. So, but at some point, I'd love to be on stage again. I do miss it. There's something about just being present within a beautiful piece of art.
Do you have a wish list?
No, not as an actor. No, not really. No, I haven't. No, and neither as a director, actually. I have no idea. I had no idea that I was going to direct A View from the Bridge. I have for a while thought I'd like to do Midsummer Night's Dream. Beautiful thing, which I directed a while ago here as well. Wasn't one I'd planned necessarily, but it kind of came to me in thinking about where we were as an organisation and the other things we wanted to do. So I feel quite open to what might happen next.
Have you found any more satisfying than others, as far as, maybe the ones that you've planned to, or you've thought maybe I'd like to, like with Midsummer Night's Dream? I mean, obviously we don't know the end result yet, but with the ones that you've thought for a while, I'd like to direct this, and you have directed it, or the ones that have suddenly come to you that you didn't see coming, have you had a different response to either? Have you had a more positive, for yourself I'm talking about, a more positive response to either the ones you've planned or have just come to you?
There was something really satisfying about the choice of A View from the Bridge, because we collectively made that choice, and we read plays thinking about this space and about this organisation and how we were trying to speak to our community a bit more, or in new ways, and trying to represent community issues on stage. And when I read A View from the Bridge for the first time, I didn't know it at all. When we were looking for plays, I read it for the first time, and it grabbed me, by the jugular. And I thought, well, this not only fits the space beautifully, potentially, because it has both intimacy and exposure in it as a play, it also is a play about contemporary issues of immigration and economic inequality, and there is a scope also to potentially have community engagement within the production. It all just kind of came together. So I felt really thrilled to have discovered it, and then we produced it quite soon after I first read it. So that felt like a lovely journey.
There are also, I mean, Midsummer Night's Dream it does have similar themes through it. You know, the shackles, borders, boundaries, how people relate to each other. There is again a similarity with that. As far as Midsummer Night's Dream is concerned, do you have for yourself a moment that stands out? Is there a really key moment for you that you just think, I have to serve this moment well? Is there a particular moment or a particular interaction that for you sums this play up?
I think there are two really important moments to be clear about, and one is the discovery of the lovers at the end of their, wild experiences of the forest and having been given the love potion. Discovery of the lovers by Theseus and Aegeus, and the arrival of them in this new configuration, and getting across that there is something more truthful and more substantive about this new set of relationships that they're now embracing than before, and integrity to it, and that has an impact on these elite who previously weren't able to accept those relationships. So there's something there to kind of get across. And similarly, I think in terms of the integrity and the honour of the mechanicals, finding that balance, that fine line between having a wonderful time with their play, the play within the play, and letting it be beautifully ridiculous and flawed in places, but keeping the heart of the honourable heart of their quest and their character as people who are doing this really difficult, challenging thing, and getting that across. Because I don't want to send up people who are trying theatre out, or not professionals, but who are putting everything into it, because there's nothing better than trying theatre out as a non-professional and putting everything into it. That some of the best work and best legacies are left by work that isn't professional in the realm of theatre. Absolutely.
Is there a community element to this play that you're focused on? Is there an opportunity, whether it be the show itself or the world around the project that you're creating? Is there a community element to this one?
Yes, and with every spring factory company season that we will produce, there'll always be a community element, whether it's right in the middle on stage with the professionals or whether it's operating in a different way. And this year, I'm really excited to be co-leading our new Get On Stage group, which is a non-professional adult theatre company who we will train with every Tuesday evening over the course of 15 weeks. And they will get to know the actors of Midsummer Night's Dream, get to know their process. They'll come in on rehearsals and tech if they want to, and they'll be part of the factory company, essentially. And we will be making a piece of work independently of Midsummer Night's Dream that might be, we don't know what it will be yet, but it might be a little inspired by Shakespeare or some of the themes in the play, or it might be more separate. But the main thrust around it is to kind of is to create a collective group of non-professionals and professionals in this building at the same time, making hopefully beautiful work together.
And what do they need to bring to the plate as far as these Tuesday evening sessions are concerned? What do they need to come with?
Openness and fear and uncertainty and everything they come with,
Which is pretty much what every actor comes to a first rehearsal with anyway.
Absolutely. Whatever they come with will be the right thing they come with, I think, and it's an opportunity as much as anything to create trusting, lasting connections amongst a group which means people feel safe to be creative. So whatever barriers people bring to that initially are important and valuable to bring and for us to kind of, work with.